Hi, it's Carrie, back with another video. I know it's been a while, but I just got back from watching the new Stephen King It movie, and as a fan of the book and the original story, I'm actually liking it. Like, I understand why they made the changes that they did, and just the different things that they altered to make the new story make sense. I took notes while I was watching the movie, and I kept them. I was the annoying person in the theater with my phone on, but I had the screen brightness all the way down, and I just kept a notes. Oh, you can't even see that. I just kept a notes thing open, and I just kept making little notations as I found things in the movie, like little Easter eggs from the book, little things that I recognized or things that I wanted to talk about because I really liked it. So this will be sort of a comparison to the old movie and a comparison to the book, which I have reviewed on my channel, so if you want to check that out, I'll put a link down in the description. I review a very broad overview of the book, which is over 1,000 pages. Stephen King's It. So I'll just get going with this list. The movie starts out with the death of Bill's brother George. Same thing happens in the book. That was pretty straightforward. And it's the little boy in the yellow raincoat running down the street, following his little boat, little paper boat. It falls into the sewer drain. That was fine. The dialogue was pretty close to what it was in the book too. But the one part that was really sort of, I don't want to say unnecessary, but just a little more in your face and gross than I think it needed to be, was when Georgie died. The clown, this is going to be full of spoilers. I hope you know that right off the bat. Hello, book, movie spoilers. Waving the red flag right here. If you don't want any spoilers, don't watch this. But I'm going to be in full-on spoiler mode for this. So the clown grabs Georgie. Georgie's reaching to try to get his boat back from the sewer drain. Clown has it down in the drain. Georgie's reaching to get it back, and the clown grabs his arm and pulls it out straight and bites him right here. Opens up his mouth, if you've seen Supernatural and the Leviathans, yeah, like that. Clamps down on his arm, tears it off. And there's this little moment where the camera flies up and you can see it from above. You can see the arm by the drain, and you can see Georgie away from the drain. He spins around. He's trying to crawl away at this point, and he's got this little shredded stump of an arm, bleeding and gross, and he's screaming, and then the clown reaches out from the drain, grabs his foot, and hauls him down the drain. So in the movie, he actually just goes missing. In the book, the clown yanks his arm off and he stays in the drain, and then they find his body and that he died. But in the movie, he just goes missing, and so that's kind of Bill's motivation. Bill is his brother. It's kind of Bill's motivation to go after and kill the monster because he thinks some part of his mind thinks that Georgie might still be alive. But I think the blood and him crawling across the street, trying to crawl away with his bloody stump of an arm, I think that was a bit more gore than it needed to be. Because then when the clown grabs him and whips him back into the drain, there's this spray of blood in the water, and it's ugh, okay. I got it. We're going for a shock factor here. And then they go through the different kids, and the one that stood out to me, I wasn't taking notes from the beginning. I wasn't planning on taking notes while I watched the movie, but I found this little Easter egg, if you can call it that. And it stood out to me, and I don't know if it means what I think it means in regards to the book. It's when Mike is the black boy. He's running away from the bullies. He sees them in their car. He doesn't want to confront them. He's on his bike. I don't know if he's delivering meat to the local meat market because he works on a farm. And they show him slaughtering sheep with this stun gun, this bolt gun thing. You put it to their forehead and pull the trigger, and it shoots this rod of metal into their forehead. That plays a bigger part later on. But they show Mike, he's down this little alley, and it's at the back door of this meat market. And then all of a sudden, the outsides of the door light up like it's on fire, and these hands start creeping out of the door. And that reminded me of the fire at the Black Spot in the book, which was a black nightclub that caught on fire. Several hundred people were caught inside. They burned alive. That was very traumatic, and I don't know if that's what they were going for in the movie, just to make kind of a reference to that. That's how I interpret it anyway. But I think when they gave Mike his backstory in the movie, they said that his parents had died in a fire. So it could have just been that as well. But because I know that story from the book, that's what I thought it was when I first saw it. They do also reference the ironworks explosion that took place in 1908, I think they said in the movie. And that was when... They don't do a very good job of explaining it in the movie, so if you don't know what they're talking about, it's understandable. In the book, this was an Easter egg hunt at the local ironworks in the early 1900s, and there were all these kids there and like adults and everything like that, and the ironworks exploded while this was going on. And in the movie it said 88 dead, 102 or 88 kids were dead, 102 total dead. So they did reference that more than once. As Ben is looking through old news articles, he finds it, and then he sees a picture of like a head in a tree. It's hard to explain because I almost feel like I need to explain more in case you don't know what they're talking about, but really I should be just, this is mostly a video for people who are familiar with the book or who are familiar with the story as a whole. That way it'll make more sense. That was just another Easter egg that I found. I like that they mentioned the dairy ironworks explosion. Henry Bowers, he catches up to Ben, the fat kid. So Henry is the bully, Ben is the local fat boy, and he makes fun of him and is picking on him. He catches up to him in a scene that's very similar to the first movie and almost identical to what takes place in the book. Ben is leaving the library on his way home. Henry and the bullies catch up with him. Henry pulls out a knife and carves an H in Ben's stomach. Pulls up his shirt, carves an H in his stomach, which is exactly what happens in the book. But it did not happen in the previous movie, I think, because it would have been too traumatic, too out there, for a movie at the time. I don't think they really wanted to go there. But I do appreciate that they went there this time, to keep it more consistent with the original story. I noticed that Bill Denborough was wearing a Tracker Brothers t-shirt, which is a direct reference to the book. In the book, the Tracker Brothers is a truck depot, and the kids play baseball behind it. They mention it several times, and the Tracker Brothers are out there watching the kids, and Belch hit a home run the one time, so I thought that was really cool. I think they made custom t-shirts for some of these kids. Because later on, Richie has a t-shirt that references Freeze's department store, which in the book is where he's running away from Henry and the other bullies, and he loses them in the department store. He pushes open an emergency exit, and then it slams shut, and then he goes running down a different aisle so that the bullies think that he left the store. Freeze's department store. I thought that was really cool. He's wearing that shirt for a good part of the movie. I don't remember when... Oh, it's when Patrick Hockstetter is running away. He luckily doesn't die in the same way that he does in the book, because in my previous video I mentioned that was the most gruesome, disgusting death I think I've ever read. I'm really glad he didn't die that way in the movie. He gets attacked by zombies down in the sewers, basically. Not zombies, but rotting corpses and dead people. And he sees this balloon come floating towards him. You've seen the balloon in the previews, the red balloon, whatever. It turns around, and as it turns, it says, "I heart dairy" on it, which is a reference to chapter 2 in the book when there is a gay couple and a gay man is murdered. He's thrown off the bridge. He's wearing a hat that says, "I heart dairy," and all of the balloons, there are a bunch of balloons floating under the bridge, under the underside of the bridge, and they all say, "I heart dairy" on them. So I like that nod to the book as well. I saw you, the director who put that in there. A scene that they added, which was not in the book, but I do appreciate that they added it just because it adds a different level to the kids and how they're connected to each other. In the movie now, they've added a scene where the kids are swimming in the quarry. The boys are all there, all 5 of them, and they show them standing up at the top of this cliff. None of them want to jump, and they're all standing there in their tighty-whities. And then Beverly comes along. Beverly's the only girl in the group, and she is in her dress. She pulls up on her bike, and she goes, "Oh, you chicken shits," and she pulls off her dress, and she's wearing this skimpy little bra and underwear like you would when you're in middle school, like a training bra, basically. she goes running past him and jumps off the cliff, and then they're all swimming around in the water, and like you could see that they're genuine friends. They get along with each other, and it's not a sexual thing at that point because they're still kind of too young to have it be like that. It's just this innocent, childlike friends, and I do appreciate that. I like that they added that scene because I feel like that would have been good to the original story as well. That would have added a level to the story. And then later on, of course, when they get out of the water, Beverly's like lounging with her headphones on, and she's got her sunglasses on. She's got her eyes closed. She's just sunning, drying off with her little bra and underwear on. And the boys are all staring at her. I thought that was really great. I appreciate that scene. They do bring up the house on Neibolt Street quite a bit. There are a few different scenes at this creepy old house. Once they realize that that's where it lives, that's where it's coming from. And the man with leprosy chases Eddie at the house at Neibolt Street. They don't say right away that's what he has, but Eddie calls him a leper later on. I thought that was pretty creepy. I don't know if that's exactly what a person with leprosy would look like. Again, it was more of like a zombie type creature, humanoid type thing. I don't know. Like, they did a lot with the special effects in this movie, making everybody look really gross and oozy and bloody, and yeah. Beverly's scene where she's in the bathroom and all the blood attacks her out of the sink, she does actually go get the tape measure. In the book, this is a big scene. She takes her tape measure. It's her dad's tape measure, so she has to make sure that it's going to go back. It's one of those that rolls up into the silver container. She pulls it out, and she's feeding it down into the drain in the sink, and then she gets it all the way out, 24 feet, I think it was, and then she winds it back in, and like the last 8 inches have like this gooey red slime and like all this hair coming off of it, and like that's pretty gross. And then the whole sink explodes, basically. Not like shattering the ceramic or anything, but like all of this blood comes flying up out of the drain, Carrie style, like the old Stephen King. Another nod to Stephen King, because he's also the one who wrote Carrie. Drenches the entire bathroom, the light, the whole thing is like a red room, like a photography studio, like a dark room. It's dark red, it's all over the walls, the sink, she's covered in it, Carrie style, and her dad comes in and can't see anything. I do appreciate that they went all out with the blood scene, because in the 80s movie it was kind of tame. Like, there wasn't really enough to freak out a person, in my personal opinion. Let's see here. Bill has a scene where he he sees his little brother in the house, and he goes into Georgie's room. He's feeling very sad about it, and he sees this Lego turtle sitting on the desk, and he picks up the turtle, and he's sad. He's thinking about Georgie, and then he sees Georgie, run past the window or whatever it is. I do like that it was a turtle. That is also a nod to the book, but of course they didn't explain it. In the book, the turtle is this godlike creature that helps them out. It's this guiding spirit that's helping them to battle it. It's hard to explain because they don't even do a very good job of explaining what the turtle is in the book. It's just like the turtle couldn't help us, or the turtle, they reference the turtle often. So I'm pretty sure that's why they made the Lego turtle be in Georgie's room. For anybody paying attention who knows the book, it's a turtle. Let's see here. They do mention Edward Corcoran, which was also something that I brought up in my other book review of Stephen King's It. Edward Corcoran, he shows up on his own wanted poster, and they make a point of saying his name. He's put over the top of another missing girl, Betty Ripsum, who they do mention several times. I think just for consistency's sake, and you can follow her as they mention her like 3 different times throughout the book. And then they put Edward Corcoran over her, and if you know his story in the book, he went missing and nobody ever found him. He got dragged down into the river in the book. I do like that the cycle of it was 27 years, because in the original book, it is 27 years. I think in the movie, the 80s movie that they made, or the TV miniseries, whatever it was, they made it 30 years, like an exact 30 years instead. But I like that they kept it at 27. And I don't know why, but I like that they switched it to having Ben be the historian. Because Ben is Ben in the movie now, he's the new kid in town. And he didn't grow up with the other kids, he's new. So when he comes to town, comes to the school, he researches everything about the town and he learns all about it. He's got these news articles and stuff all over his wall, and somehow the new kid is the one to figure out that there's this pattern going on. And I thought that was interesting. You know, a change, obviously, from the original story. Mike, the black boy, is the historian because it's also something that his dad did. But in the movie, Mike's dad isn't around, so there are quite a few changes with the kids' backstories, which I think for anybody who's really familiar with the book, it's really going to stand out. You're really going to notice it. But because I know the book, I notice it, but I don't know if it would make sense to somebody who didn't know the original story. You know what I mean? But I like that Ben was the historian in this case. It gave him a little bit bigger role than he would have had otherwise. In the movie, Mike doesn't really have a big role at all. The Paul Bunyan statue. There actually is a giant plastic statue of Paul Bunyan that the kids pass by in the town square. In the book, it comes to life and attacks Richie, but in the movie, it's just there. It's in the background of several scenes. Freeze's department store, again, it was on Richie's shirt. The clown actually goes beep beep Richie, which is something that they did to Richie in the book whenever he would go off in one of his stupid voices. He does do voices in the movie too, just not very well, which is something that he would have done when he was a kid. He does voices badly, and at one point he's face to face with the clown, and the clown goes beep beep Richie. Richie actually finds himself in a room full of clown dolls when they're in the house on Neibolt Street, which I thought was pretty cool, pretty creepy. And I think that worked really well, to have him have a fear of clowns. Because of course not. Of course, why wouldn't he have a fear of clowns when the main character, the main bad guy, is a clown? The old refrigerator. And I don't know if this was a nod to the book specifically, or if this was just a coincidence. When they're in the house on Neibolt Street and Eddie gets separated from them, he's cut off, and I don't know if he must be in the kitchen at the time, or I don't know, because he falls through the roof. He falls through the ceiling of the room upstairs. Maybe he ends up in the kitchen. And then it comes crawling out of this old abandoned refrigerator that was in this house. But in the book, the refrigerator is out in the dump, out in the Barrens, and Patrick Hockstetter is the one that keeps it and opens it, and all this creepy shit comes out of it. But in the movie, I don't know if it's a nod to the book specifically, but I noticed it. I noticed that it came out of the refrigerator to attack Eddie. So I choose to think that it was a nod to the book, because that would be really cool. They make a reference to Molly Ringwald, which I thought was great. In the book, the kids' storyline takes place around 1958, 1959, and in the new movie, they actually have moved the kids' storyline to be 1988 to 1989, which makes it 30 years later than it would have been in the original story, so that they can reference different movies, different songs. They make fun of Ben for being a fan of New Kids on the Block. They mention that a few times. And then they make a Molly Ringwald joke, because Beverly has red hair, and I think it's Eddie that says something like, "And who said Molly Ringwald could come along?" And she like flips him off right in the middle of her chest, like Molly Ringwald does in the movie. I just thought that was really cool. I like that they could reference 80s stuff, because if it had taken place in the 50s, obviously they couldn't do that. Butch Bowers, that was interesting. Henry's dad, Butch Bowers, in the book, he's like a drunk farmer who just beats the crap out of his kid and like doesn't do anything at all, like he's living off of welfare or something like that. In the movie, he's a cop. Like a seriously intimidating, abusive to his son cop. Like, he catches Henry playing with his gun out in the yard shooting stuff with his friends, and then he takes it away from him, gets up in his face, and is like, "You really think you're tough stuff?" And Henry's, cowering, like he doesn't want his dad to hit him, which is what we're meant to assume that he was going to do. His dad starts to walk away, and he turns around, he fires the gun at Henry's feet 3 times. Henry's jumping, obviously, like he starts crying, and like his dad goes, look at this tough guy. I can see why they did that. I can see why they made Butch this more masculine, abusive, hardcore character. I don't know why they made him a cop specifically, because that doesn't really make sense. But they did have him die in the same way that he did in the book. Henry is slowly going crazy at this point. Henry actually doesn't have that big of a part in the movie. I was surprised by that. It more revolves around the 7 kids, and then Henry is just sort of this little side story. He's off on his own. But he's gifted by it, we're assuming, because there's a balloon attached to the mailbox. It gives him this knife, this switchblade knife that comes flying out of the handle when you push a button. I don't know if there's a specific word for that. I know there is, but I don't know what the word is. The clown gives him the knife, and he takes it into the house where his dad is sleeping on the rocking chair, on a chair. Henry puts the knife up to his neck and pushes the button, so the blade goes directly into his dad's neck. Blood all over the place. He dies. Henry, you can see it in his eyes. He's going crazy at this point. That is exactly what happened in the book. So, I see you. I see what you did there. That was a good thing. They do mention Eddie's aspirator. And his medication. I think they have him taking pills in the movie. I didn't even realize that until just now. Eddie, in the book, he has asthma. And he does pay attention to what medicine he takes, but it's mostly his asthma that kicks his butt all the time and, like, keeps him from chasing after everybody, and, like, if he gets scared, all of a sudden he has an asthma attack. But in the movie, he had, like, this fanny pack that he was carrying around with him with all these pills, and it was said that his pills are the placebo, a placebo. They don't mean anything. Because when all of a sudden he gets mad at his mom, and he's like, you do realize they gave me gazebos, which I thought was funny, but, you know, it was also a very serious moment for his character, so I felt bad laughing. And he, like, throws the pill bottle at his mom, but in the book it was his aspirator for his asthma that was the placebo. So that was interesting. I just realized that little difference. Henry Bowers, I think he died in the movie. I think he died. Like, the kids are going down in the basement in Neibolt Street. They're going after it. They're going down into his lair. And instead of going out into the barrens and down into the sewers that way, they go through the house at Neibolt Street and down into the basement, where they call it the well house because there's this old, creepy stone well in the basement. Think of, like, The Ring, like that type of thing. At least not in the middle of a field. It's in the basement. And they're climbing down the well. Not all the way. They climb down part way, and then there's, like, an opening, like a shaft to go that way. If they were to fall, they would just keep falling past this opening. And the kids are climbing down the hole when Henry Bowers catches up to them, and he's upset. Most of the kids have made it down already. Mike, Black Boy, is the only one that's still up there. And Henry hits him with something metal, you know, and, like, they're fighting, and Henry ends up getting shoved and pushed down this well and, like, knocks his head on the side of it and, like, just falling, screaming, whatever. You don't really hear it when he hits the bottom, but I'm assuming he hits the bottom. I'm assuming he died. In the book, he doesn't die like that. No, in the book, he comes face to face with it after it kills one of his friends, and he, like, goes crazy down in the sewers trying to find his way out. Maybe that's how they'll do it in the movie, the second movie. I don't know. But he went falling down this well, and then we didn't hear from him again the whole rest of the movie. So I'm assuming maybe he died. Maybe they decided to change that. I don't know. Like I said, he didn't really have a big part in the movie, which I was kind of surprised by. He didn't have very many lines at all, and the ones that he did, it was just him swearing and angry at people. Bill kills Georgie. So there's a final confrontation down in the lair of it, as you'd expect, and Bill is speaking to this manifestation of his little brother who died. And I don't know, it's so sad to watch because Georgie is upset. Georgie's saying, I never came back, you know, I couldn't get out of here. You know, I just want to go home by mom and dad, and it's very sad seeing Georgie go through that sort of, you know, he's just a kid. At that point, he's not evil. He's not trying to eat the kids. He's not, you know, obviously he's created by it at that point, but he's not evil. He's just reacting the way that a 6-year-old kid would react in that situation, seeing his brother again. And so you get to feel very sad for him. Like, you wanna help him, you wanna hug him, you wanna, protect him. He's only got one little stump of an arm, and Bill apologizes for leaving him, for not going to find him, and then he pulls out the stun gun, whatever the gun is called that Mike had at the beginning, that metal thing where you shoot the metal rod into the animal to kill it. He pulls that out, puts it against Georgie's head, and, like, kills Georgie, which I found to be very traumatic, actually, because you think about it, he just killed his 6-year-old brother. Obviously not his real brother, but, like, a manifestation of his brother, and, like, it was just so shocking when it happened, because that did not happen in the book. And I don't know if I would call that unnecessary, just because then obviously Georgie's laying there all dead, this 6-year-old with a little hole punched in his forehead, and then he sort of, shakes and moves around, and he becomes it. He legs stretch out, arms stretch out, and he becomes the clown again. The final battle, I thought, was really well done. Just as all the different things came together, and all the different parts of it, all the things they could have done, I feel like what they did was really well done. Each of the kids has one thing that they're afraid of, the way that it presented itself to them in particular and made them afraid. And so they each have, like, a weapon on them. One person grabs a chain, another one has a baseball bat, they've got metal spikes from the gate outside, they've got all these different things that they have to fight it, that they brought in with them. And it is in the middle of, like, the circle of the kids, and each of them, one of them takes a whack at it, and it turns into something else. Because it's facing this kid now, it'll turn into that fear, and that kid, swipes at it, and it's just this back and forth. It keeps changing shape, and they keep wailing on it with, like, chains and spikes and stuff like that. I thought it was really good. And then after they defeat it, I don't know, it goes falling down inside some sort of deeper well in its lair. Its head starts to disintegrate and, like, float away, and, like, Bill starts to go after it, and it lets go, and it falls down this really deep hole. So the kids assume that it's gone, it's not coming back. But they go back outside later on, they're discussing what happened, and they cut their hands with a piece of glass and hold hands, as like a blood brother bond, that type of thing. That is exactly what happens in the book as well. I do appreciate that happened. That was very cool. I don't know how I feel about the love story between Bill and Beverly. I do like, that happened kind of in the book too. In the book, Bill wasn't really aware of her most of the time, but she was very aware of him. So that was different. In the book, Ben is more of the focus when it comes to Beverly. And he did have a few different scenes where you could see, he sees Beverly watching Bill and Bill watching Beverly, and he's jealous. You can see that if you know what you're looking for. One thing I didn't write down, because it's just as a whole, I do like how they did the clown. I think it worked really well. I like that it was more slimy, more drooly, more, bloody, more intense, more creepy than the 80s clown. I did like how they did that, and it changes, its eyes go crooked, but not like in. Its eyes will actually go out, so like one eye will turn out the other way. I thought that was pretty creepy. I do think this clown, the way that it spoke, the way that it chased the kids, the way that it, I don't know, like, and it could just be special effects too, that might be it. I feel like it was a much creepier clown than the original Tim Curry. Sorry for that blasphemy there. But I do feel like it was more on point as to what it would have been. Like, what I pictured when I'm reading the book is this creepy, grimy, slimy clown down in the sewers, and it can make itself very beautiful, very, like, not beautiful, but like very clean, very, makeup is perfect, hair is perfectly coiffed, and like they could do all that, and then all of a sudden, you know, he'll get garbage dumped on him, or he'll come up out of the water, and he's just like all gross. Ugh. I do appreciate how they did the clown. I feel like it was much better than the 80s movie. So, yeah, that was just a few of the notes that I had. I had a lot of, like, thoughts while watching this movie. I like that it took place in the 80s because they could do more. It was more relatable, I think, to audiences that would be watching it now. And now with part 2 coming out, who knows when, if they jump 27 years into the future, it would be, you know, 2015, 2016, I think, something like that. I mean, it would be more relevant. Maybe not that far. 88 plus 27. I could totally do my math. So like 2005, maybe? Yeah, I think, well, no, it would be like 2015, 16, I think that's what it would be. So we can look forward to that in the future. That was just a few of the notes that I had. Again, this video probably only makes sense if you've seen the original movie, if you've read the book, if you know the story, because I did kind of jump through the different points, the different things that jumped out at me that I noticed, and I probably missed a whole bunch. You know, obviously I had my head down as I was typing some notes, so I might have missed something, but I thought that was pretty cool. Overall, I do feel like it was a good movie. Not like creepy horror, like your traditional movie. Just a scare tactic, you know, creepy movie. I still thought it was really good. If you have any questions, comments, leave them down below. Otherwise, I will talk to you later. Bye.